Welcome to this Peel Yourself Off the Mat Monday edition of Bury Your Bookie. I'm Jeff DeForest, and joined immediately on the program by a guy who is foaming at the mouth tonight because we have a chance between the two of us, oddly, to be the cleaning lady this year and actually win a pool. I don't know if I've ever won outright any NCAA pool that I've ever entered in my lifetime. You no doubt Mike Jones, as we introduce Mike Jones to you here on the show with us every Monday and Thursday on Bury Your Bookie. I'm anticipating that maybe you were in some $10,000 a man bracket pool when you were in your youth, so to speak, maybe early 20s, and all of a sudden you scored like a $500,000 and disappeared for a while. How are you, by the way, my friend? And how
Good.
anxious are you for tonight's activities?
Can't wait. Should be a fantastic game. A little bit of both. A team with fluid offense and great movement and good shooters against a team that shoots really well and plays great defense. And since I'm a defender, yeah, I'm going to pick the other way and go with the offense. But man, I love to watch Houston play. Veteran team. Had my exchanges and I had dinner one night with Kelvin Sampson. So it was a very funny exchange. Don't need to bore the audience, but so there's a love-hate there thing with me because he told me I was an idiot basically about my sports knowledge.
Okay.
And, so it was kind of interesting, but, not bad to see a veteran coach. He could be the oldest guy ever to win a championship. And it's good to see the state of Florida represented, where he resides. So it should be a great game.
Was that? It's always the same. Whatever happened last is the one that seems to stand out the most. You're only as good as your last film type of theory. But was that the biggest choke job that you've ever seen? Now, you could maybe attribute some of it to the whole Smoke and Joe Frazier, go to the body and the head will die type of theory that people have had in boxing forever. Well, he's putting those rounds in the bank. Those body shots are going to pay off later on. Maybe it was attrition after being hounded and pounded the entire game that led to Duke's falling apart in the final, especially the final 2 minutes of the ball
Yeah.
game. But you're up 14 inside of the 10-minute mark,
Yeah.
and then you're up 9 inside of the 2-minute mark.
Right.
You're supposed to win that game. So was
Yeah.
that the most monumental choke job on the part of both the Duke players and to some extent also then John Shire, although he didn't brick that free
Yeah.
throw. It was Tyrese Proctor. He didn't miss that 8-footer. That was
Yeah.
Cooper Flagg. He didn't get called for a foul on what seemed to be questionable. But was that as monumental a gag job as you've ever seen in the history of watching sports? Let's put it that way.
Well, according to the walk-off, there was a video on X where Kelvin Sampson said 14 was the biggest comeback in history of the Final Four. Um, what I saw was basically a team trying to close out a game just like Kelvin Sampson did against Gonzaga and not do it this time. Kelvin Sampson got away with it when he had a 15-point lead with 7 minutes to go and end up getting it down to 1 in the possession where they end up winning, where Duke basically lack of experience, decided to run clock a little bit at the 4 or 5 minute mark, gets one field goal in the final 10 minutes. I just don't understand. I think the pressure is not only on the kids, but really on the coaches. And I think what Shire showed was his inexperience. When he called the timeout, their last, when they couldn't get the ball in bounds, and he grabs everybody in, and the first thing is, as the lip reader I am, is someone's got to get open. That's not what I would be telling my kids. I'd be saying, set a screen, run the guy off the screen, find a way, rotate. Like, you got to come up with some fundamental answer or either guide your assistants at that point to come in and get these kids to where just getting open doesn't do it for me.
Yeah.
Because I
It's
don't
like
see
telling a friend to quit taking punches.
Yeah, I mean, when I saw that, I said they're in trouble. And they're up 3 at that point. And I'm like, they're going to have a problem. They give up right then, they steal the ball, get the dunk, and it's a 1-point game. And, there's one thing I saw that, from a basketball coaching, reffing, and life standpoint, forget the gambling, was they're up 9 with 1:50 to go. Sharp takes the ball and decides not to get the 3. They're defending the 3-point line. We're going to go in the lane. And basically, Flagg and the other kid, forget his name, but just parted ways and let let Sharp go get a layup. And I said, why do they do that? It's one thing to give a bucket up 9 with 30 seconds to go in the game. It's a whole other thing to give up a bucket up 9 with 1:45 to go, 1:50 to go. And I just felt at that point, take a block, do something, try to disrupt the shot. These old kids only get the shot blocked. And I thought that was the beginning of the end. Next time down, they miss. Sharp goes to the basket again and gets fouled. He wouldn't have went to the basket if he didn't give him a free lane the last time.
Sure.
And I think these are the things that I think these coaches miss or the players miss because they're trained. Hey, we don't want to foul there. That's a big problem to give points of the clock. And then what it does is it changes the whole momentum of the game. Now you have great guards who can cover, a team that has experience, that knows to defend. Now their momentum is there. They're down 5 and now they're pressing full court. That's what I just look at it from a standpoint. And as a gambler, if I have Duke, I'm in panic mode. Because now I'm thinking that's it. If I have Duke on the money line,
you took Houston when they were down 9 with a minute 50 to go.
yeah. But what I'm saying is that if you have Duke in the game,
Yeah.
forget the spread. Now you got a 4-1 money line bet at this point. Go, well, what the heck am I doing? That's what I mean. Like that's where this game has changed now, where the pressure isn't just on the players; it really falls on the coaches because it's so polarizing, and the jobs and the money and the NIL and all that stuff. So I think Shire, and he admitted it at the press conference where he said, I might have been a little bit to blame there. I put the kids in a bad situation. I was happy to see him say that as a young coach because I think it was part of the equation that led to this. So,
yeah,
man, it was a collapse of epic proportions that I saw for sure.
It's like anything. I mean, you've played sports throughout your life, as most people viewing this probably have, and you play the way that you got there. I mean, you might go a little bit conservative in certain situations, but in general, that never works. It's always the prevent defense philosophy. The only thing the prevent prevents is winning. But and while that's a cliche, it's true that if you just continue playing the way that you got this 9-point lead with minutes, a couple of minutes to go in a ball game, you're more likely to prevail than you are if all of a sudden you change everything up just to milk the clock, which they weren't able to do very successfully. That being said, Shire doesn't brick that free throw by Tyrese Proctor, normally a great free throw shooter. Good story this year. That ended up with a hopeless, Mason card like brick. And then, the oddity that the brick was so horrendous that it came out past the inside rebounders to the 3rd and 4th spot, and then flag is draped on the guy, and they send him to the line, which you don't usually see for what will turn out to be the go-ahead and clinching points.
Yeah.
So
and Jeff, that call was iffy. If you look at the replay, Roberts is grabbing the flag.
Never. Yeah.
You're sitting there thinking of it. The backside official makes that call over the back. He doesn't have a clear view of what's really happened. He just assumes that flag makes contact with the ball. Maybe he hit him. And now it's Roberts who's holding the guy's shorts down, preventing himself to jump and flag the jump. And you can see it clearly, and the ref doesn't pick up on it. He should be looking right at it.
Right.
So definitely a weird call.
He's pulling the guy's shorts down.
Definitely a weird call at that point. I didn't see many over-the-backs called in the entire tournament.
Right. If it's on the inside, and you got Rick Mahorn in there, and he's swinging some elbows as comes right over, the top of a guy. Yeah, of course, that's a butcher job. You're going to call that, but you don't usually see that call on the outside.
No.
And I don't know. The refs shouldn't change the way that they're officiating the game because of the situation. You would always hope that they're, the same call they were going to make in the opening seconds is the same thing they're going to do at the end of the game. But at that point in the game, that was pretty rough to send a guy to the line. They don't even have to work for it.
Yep.
And naturally, the guy had to sink the free throws, which he did, and they were clutch. And the Duke players just absolutely fell apart. All right, so where does that leave us, Mike Jones? You and I have a rooting interest in both sides in this game. I believe it's kind of like the old days when you used to see highlight played frequently here in where we are originating from, South Florida, and you had both guys in a playoff point for a superfecta, and it didn't matter who prevailed. In this case, it's a more favorable result for us if Houston wins.
Correct.
And then it's not even about the money anymore. It's the distinction that you were right.
That's right.
It's
a lot about that. You want to be right. Yeah, when you're out, give it up.
This is by blind luck also, because I couldn't have told you why Houston would be in this position. I knew a little bit about them, but do they win this game? I saw a panel of experts. I was perusing some predictions for the game tonight, and I go to CBS Sportsline. They have 7 guys handicapping a game. Guess this is with the points factored in. 5 out of 7 have Houston.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So here's my thought on this. Veteran guards, great comeback. Eyes what they saw last. One of the great misnomers in gambling is they watch the Monday Night Football game and think about it on Sunday. So you go back and look at it. It was always been this one big factor that you could go into for a while. It was a system play where you take the team who covered Monday and bet against them, and the team that lost on Monday you bet on. And they just seem to adjust, and it's the last thing. And the odds makers maybe push a point advantage because they're thinking it's the last bit. So I'm thinking maybe those handicappers are looking at a point of saying, okay, maybe that Houston's comeback is phenomenal. That's the last thing we saw. We saw a dead Florida team have to, come on after halftime after being down. So they think that. My thought is this. This is the best group of guards. They say guards win titles that we've seen. Both teams, these are the best team guard tandems in the left in the tournament. I think they were the best throughout. So we got the guards we want. Now it's whether everybody thought the height mismanage of Houston was going to be a problem. Duke would have a big advantage because it was so much bigger in length. Now it evens out a little bit more. Man, I could see the Houston play. I'm not in love with it. I just think I'm going to stick with what I picked in the beginning and go with Florida. A little bit more battle tested, playing well, have been on the downside of these games a little bit more than Houston has. Houston hasn't really made a comeback here, but Florida's had 3 of those games where they had to come back. So I don't think a lead at late will do it. And then I also like the fact of Florida being down against a team that's up, that's had a difficult time putting games away. I mean, they had Tennessee easily, but they struggled with Gonzaga. So I think there might be pressure of the moment more so on Kelvin Sampson and Houston, knowing what they went through in the '80s, not winning a title. Then there's going to be the Jim Nances are in the audience. All these guys that have watched. Hakeem Olajuwon sitting there. What can you
Oh,
do?
they're all going to be bummed out.
They're
Yeah.
all going to be fired up. So there's a little bit more pressure on the kids. So I'm going to take my chances and say the bookmakers are right. In a pick'em game, they make Florida one, and I'm going to stay with my intuition from day one when I said Florida would win this thing and look like the best team. I'm going to kind of stick with them. As much as hard it is to me, because I met Calvin Sampson and I love Houston. I love their defense. I love what they stand for. I just got to stay with the Gators. I just think my money's on the Gators.
All right. I have to stick with Houston because it's the only shot I have to
That's right.
deem myself for being wrong about the tournament for the last 60 years. So we shall see. I don't believe I've ever won a pool of any type, no matter
No,
how
here we go.
large the denomination, when it came to NCAA basketball. But
Mm-hmm.
all right, so you're saying go ahead, lay the 1.5 with the Florida Gators.
Mm-hmm.
Walter Clayton Jr. I mean,
Oof.
I was thinking as I was watching, he goes to the right side and takes a jumper, just flash line drive jumper over 2 guys. He was being double teamed to even get his
Crazy.
hands on the ball. And
Yeah.
I thought this guy is taking shots that would take nerve to go ahead and execute at the park. And he's doing it in a semifinal game in the Final Four and knocking them down. And then he's going to the basket and he's making all of these Kyrie Irving circus type conversions at the cup. And so I'm thinking they get somebody. Does Houston have a guy that looks like Sonny Liston that can come out there and check this guy one on one?
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah.
possible?
I think they do, actually. I think in your
Or you
defense,
put a bunch of guys on
of
him?
your prediction, they do. They have 3 guards that can defend. And Kelvin
Okay.
Sampson has been preaching this for 3 years, 4 years with these kids that this is how you got to play. So, and no one's more prepared for this kid than Houston is, in my opinion. So, I mean, it's going to be, can they get something else? And the big issue is, where do Roberts, Francis, and their bigs defend the perimeter of the shooters in Florida, the bigger guys that can shoot? Are they going to give them that open shot to prevent the drive? So it's a little bit of an adjustment they're going to have to make, a little bit more versatile offense. Than they don't have the big superstar like Flag, but they have guys that are playing well and they're deep, and Florida's going to be it's a great matchup. I mean, the one thing I would say is Charles Barkley eloquently quoted, if I could use the word and him in the same sentence,
Yeah.
is just this was the best Final Four 2 games that they had since he was been on CBS. I might agree. And I think that was the benefit of getting the 1 seeds in there, that you're going to have these type of games, hopefully, when you get the best teams playing up against each other. There's not that team that looks weak that's faltered or whatever. But, someone brought up a great point that Duke played 2 teams in the top 25 with both offensive and defensive efficiency. And this was the 3rd one. And, even though they looked like they had it in the bag.
This was in the bag.
Yeah.
Monumental choke job on the part of Duke. Taking nothing away from Houston, being able to at least convert at the end there.
Yep.
They hit that big looping 3,
Mm-hmm.
got it within range, and then the guy with the follow-up dunk off a missed 3-pointer.
Yep.
That was excellent. And then, I mean, I can't say that I wasn't somewhat euphoric when I see a cheap call go against Duke to make up for the 100 years of bad calls that have gone their way.
Yeah.
Coach
Yeah,
K.
read something online which shocked me that the fan base that the Duke Disgusties wanted to see Krzyzewski's faces toward the end of the game when they were blowing it. And I was like, wow, that's really tough that they're still mad at Coach K for all the success he's had.
All that bullshit.
And it was like, wow, these are real haters out there that wanted to see them show the Duke thing. But yeah, to me, I just looked at Shire when he said someone's got to get open as the answer to my problem that he was feeling the pressure like the kids were.
Yeah.
And I would have jumped a totally different approach to that, grab my kids, straighten them out, yell at them, say, come on, this is our time. We're going to screen away. We're going to go. We're going to drop, bring the guy back down. Something in an instance when you get the camera on you that you're orchestrating the change to get the play done right, not yelling at the player to get open. So I don't know. Just my thought.
I think the most significant piece of analysis that you have delivered here today, and possibly that I've seen anywhere across the zillions of written words and spoken words that have been directed at trying to figure out who's going to win tonight, is the picture that you painted of a bummed-out Jim Nance, Akeem the Dream Olajuwon, anybody that's ever been associated with the Houston Cougars program, bummed out in the audience after an extremely deflating loss at the hands of the Florida Gators. And that may be the indicator of all the things that have been written and said about the tournament so far in the final game. That might be the scene. I think that convinces me that you're on the right side of things. All right, I had this thought. You're a big golf guy, and this is our you'll be on with me on Thursday morning, but they'll have already, I guess, teed it up at Augusta National. I don't know what the official post time is for the start of the tournament. They get guys out there at like 7 in the morning.
7:30. Yep, I've been there. The greatest moment in golf is when the three guys, Gary Player now, late Arnold Palmer was doing it when I was there.
I think they still have Arnie doing
it. They do the ceremonial first tee ball, and it's really an awesome thing to watch. You get on the line at 5 o'clock. They open the gates at 6. They don't come out till 7, and you're walking briskly to the first tee box to get a sight of what you're about to watch. Yeah, it's an unbelievable experience. The best piece of property I've ever been on. And I have to do it again before my time's up to go there. But
I'll have to go there with you. You get a glimpse of Gary Player's shoe, and then you realize, man, this guy's like 90 years old. The other guys that he used to tee off with, they're all gone. Although I do believe that they wheel out the casket of Arnie Palmer. That was always one of my unfortunate criticisms of the Masters at the time, which there was a lot of stuff there with the politics and racism and all of the other things that go along with eating a cheese sandwich for lunch. But and then you had John Daly kind of goofing on the thing, and you had the Martha Burke. The fact that they used to drag Arnie around the course when he was still able to play a little bit and have him shoot like an 86 on the front before they wheeled him off. I thought they extended that a little bit too long. It got to the point of embarrassment. And
but let me just do this.
I love the tradition, and believe me, I'm a big
history of golf. Now the Open does it till 60, so you get to play. So John Daly could still log around, St. Andrews where he won some 5 years later because I think he's 55, 56, and he's going to have a chance to do it till 60, and then time's up. Maybe they should do that at the Masters, but. The sentimental part is our Boca Raton's only Bernard Langer is going to play in his last Masters this week. And there will be a bet of mine that I will bet Bob Langer will make the cut. He didn't make it last year, but he's made like 3 or 4 in his 60s already. And the guy's got a hybrid club. He hits clubs like I do when I play a ridiculous golf course that is so hard. And the TV doesn't do it justice how difficult it is.
This has to be a big step up in terms of degree of difficulty and distance.
Oh, it's incredible.
Champions Tour courses where they're playing at some place that to them is like a par 3 over in Naples. Yeah,
that's why he's going. He says he knows he can't compete to win anymore, but he's going to try to make the cut.
All right.
Watching Fred Couples just not hit balls and just go around and talk and watch his energy. I think when you lose that ability to have the veteran player that comes in there, I think the tradition of this event. And
Couples isn't in it anymore? No more
Yeah,
Couples?
he's playing.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Less than 100 players get in, and it's really qualifying to get in. And you won. You get to play as long as you want. I think I love it. And I think as I get older, I appreciate it more because I'm seeing the guys that I followed in my generation around my age that are doing it. So it's a sentimental thing for me, and I don't mean to deter the younger viewer here to say that, oh, maybe I'm an old fogey and my traditions are right or wrong. But I think we need a little bit more tradition in all the sports. And, I like the new ways some of the things are working, but, some of the old stuff is pretty good too, and this being one of it for me,
All
at
right,
least.
so here's the thing that struck me this morning because they
Mm-hmm.
just had the Live Tour in Miami. Now it got a lot of attention, but not because they were playing golf there. Certain guy that fancies himself a championship caliber golfer happened to be spending some time there because the Saudis were there on his course at Doral.
Mm-hmm.
So staying out of the political aspect of it, but
Sure.
you're just thinking about the Live Tour.
Mm-hmm.
Man, remember all of the controversy there was? Not
Yeah.
controversy, but there was a lot of acrimony going back and forth, a lot of trash talking between Live Tour players, which were perceived to be rats, essentially. They had turned their back on the PGA people, sold themselves
Yeah.
out. This was the narrative for blood money from the Saudis,
Mm-hmm.
sports washing they wanted to do. Now, they have virtually disappeared. And when they first had the opportunity to get back in, it was controversial whether they would honor their qualifying
Mm-hmm.
credentials for the Masters and these big tournaments, the slams, the majors. But then they seemed determined, right? Like they were coming in as Arnie's army, that they were going to mow down these PGA players, and to a large part they did, man. Brooks Koepka come out there firing, and they had
Mm-hmm.
DeChambeau. He's cutting down
Mm-hmm.
trees with a chainsaw that he has in his bag. Just anything he could do to brutalize those PGA players. I'm hearing none of that right now,
Yep.
and the odds, Mike Jones, on any of these Live Tour players. I think John Rahm is the highest in terms of offering the lowest odds on the board among the Live Tour players,
Yep.
and he's like 17 to 1 or something
That's
like that.
right. I'm looking at it right now. 17-1.
Who
DeChambeau's
even
a
knows
straight.
how he's playing? I was
Yeah.
looking at Dustin Johnson. You get like 55 to 1. Does this guy, is he just snorting cocaine with Paula Gretzky and celebrating the Ovechkin goal? I mean, I'm not sure. 5 tournaments so far for the Live Tour.
Yeah.
Now, PGA Tour has already had like 20, right?
Right.
Um,
Well, you guys play. Okay, so here's the inside information for the viewers. I got to shake hands, and I've played golf with him once and talked to him numerous times. But Bob Koepka was at an outing I was in. And I asked him how Brooks is going. We were on a putting green and looked at him. How's he doing? And he said he's ready. He's going to hit his 7-iron, try to move it both ways. And he's working on a short game for the last month because that's what it takes to win at Augusta. And he's a mainline great major player. And this is what he gets up for.
yeah.
Well, yeah, you need your game, and yeah, he was in there and then had a bad round and a couple of holes. Yeah, I mean, it could happen. It doesn't necessarily mean anything. It happens to all these guys at majors, and I know it would mean a lot to Brooks to get in there. I mean, I like Rory's chances this week, thinking that maybe this is the time for him to get his.
A little momentum working.
Yeah,
Scotty
yeah,
Scheffler be discounted,
yeah,
actually.
yeah.
Paul Strauch.
As far as live guys go, my long shot. It's not really a long shot. I think he's ninth overall, but I love the way Joaquin Neiman's playing from Chile. I've always loved this game and thought he would win a major at some point. Why not now at 30-1? Um, you go down the line. There's some guys out down there that Lucas Auberg is 19-1. I mean, that's a fair guy, young upcoming player.
Yeah.
That looks like he can go. I don't think. I think what would slow down on the live, Jeff, is that there's a deal coming. And I think the PGA is staying quiet because there was a little bit of hypocrisy if they
You're hearing nothing about
live in, right? And I think that's what they're trying to do is lower the temperature and then maybe figure out something. Because say what you want about Phil Mickelson, I've just heard things that make me not a huge fan, but I know he gets a ton of support, and I love his game and I enjoy watching him. But he did do something for the PGA Tour, which is he upgraded these events. He got more money for the players by opening his mouth and going against it, going hard against the PGA about how he couldn't get the rights to his videos and all that stuff. Like worse than even the NFL can, and they don't have any Players Association. They have the Players Tournament, but it's not. But meanwhile, he got all of a sudden Liv comes around, and now the purses rise, and it's not a big deal anymore. So where was that money going? We know that there's all sorts of people taking money all over the place, but this was even something even in the PGA Tour. So
and all of a sudden they had the
to me, you got to give Phil Mickelson a pat on the back for at least that he brought it to the forefront and the PGA reacted. So as much as I didn't like these moves, I wasn't a
you
huge
don't hear
fan.
Tiger railing away.
I mean, right, but right,
He
Tiger
picked up what, 75 million from the PGA.
no, and Tiger doesn't affect Tiger. Tiger's going to do whatever he wants anytime he wants.
Yeah.
He's got pop stroke now. Tiger can do it all. God bless him. He's gone through a lot in his personal life, so whether self-induced or not, you still feel a little bit for the guy, and he's dry like hell, and
When
he's
you go down that the waitress from the Waffle House or whatever that was,
yeah.
and the van is shaking, and there are people like witnessing this. And I had the opportunity to interview a couple of the so-called tiger mistresses, and you're thinking. I mean, this is not meant in any kind of disparaging way towards women, but you're thinking, you're Tiger Woods. I know he's had his share of hot babes, but this guy was all over the board when it came
Yes.
to
Yeah, and not the forum to explain my side of this, but there was a lot of rumors running around Las Vegas when I was living there. So I could tell you that there was a lot of people that I would trust when they said things to me that I'm not going to repeat. Were saying that your instincts on this might be you're not far off at all.
Oh man, I mean,
Why?
you had to look at what he was doing and saying, how did he have the stamina to stand up
Yeah,
without
right,
tea after
right.
banging like
Yeah,
30 different chicks all night? All right, so we're not going to base our pick on that though.
yeah,
You're giving the Live Tour players a chance. I'm looking
yes.
at like a guy like Dustin Johnson, thinking they just don't give a flying one anymore. His finishes
Wow.
in 5 tournaments: 44th, 31st, 54th, and they don't have that many players either. I
No,
mean, it's not like these
no.
owners are
Those are the amount of players. Like 54 is what that number is. So he came in last.
one fifth place finish and 27th in
Yeah.
Miami, and none of them come in looking sharp. But you have this inside information. I love that you shared
I,
it with the audience.
well, I know Brooks gets up for these events, so I think he's
He
going to
loves
have
it.
a shot. Yep. And I like Joaquin Neiman at 30-1. I mean, I just think he's got a game. I thought he would win a major prior to going to Live. I think he's focused. He's spends a lot of time here in Palm Beach, and I like these local guys. If I had to look at a long shot, maybe a Tony Finau at 100-1 might be a guy I'd look at.
He's always a disappointment.
Yeah, but maybe the time maybe you could dislocate the other ankle on the part 3, and maybe so. But there's guys out there that you think could
Anybody can win.
Yeah, and the best part about this, and for Tigers, the explanation of Tiger why the Masters works is that there's only 95 golfers or so that play. You don't have to go up against a full field, so you're 60 short. So you get hot. There might not be enough chasers there that are hot to it. But I can tell you this: being around, watching these guys play, and being around really good golfers that I've played with, man, these guys are so good today. They hit
It's
it.
ridiculous.
I mean, I just look at these guys at the adrenaline rush of playing in Augusta National, just like I felt as a fan, which is to me the only event that I would actually pay for if the Giants ever make it to a Super Bowl one time in my lifetime would be the other. But I mean, it's just a must see. And then I know why they play good on a real difficult golf course, because their adrenaline's there. This is what it's all about. This is the major. If I'm a golfer, this is the major.
Oh, you want to win this one, for
Yeah.
sure. That ugly green jacket notwithstanding. All right, imagine there's somebody out there that bet at $1,000,000 that Scotty Scheffler would get arrested prior to the 3rd round of the tournament last year. And do you think that guy parlayed it into a prop bet that he'll get arrested again?
Oof.
Imagine betting that.
I would bet probably against that he gets arrested again.
Of course.
I can tell you Augusta's pretty friendly people to the golfers, so I would think they treat it a little differently than Louisville. But yeah, that's a good one.
Those kind of stones.
Yep.
Where you would be as a gambler today. Yeah, you would be, out in a non-extraditable country because you owed everybody in the world money. All right, Mike Jones, good luck with your play tonight. You like them Florida Gators. I need the Houston Cougars to do it. I don't know if they can disrupt things enough again. We shall see. Excellent ball movement. And this Walter Clayton Jr., as I said, I mean, he's firing them up from all over the place. Shots that you'd be yelling at him, no, at the park. And boom, nothing but net. I mean, swishing him with confidence. So he'll have to be somehow compromised by this outstanding, oppressive Houston Cougars 28-year-old defense, which that was a big issue now. It would be, right? I mean, when you were 19, you took your team there, your high school buddies or whatever, and you're just coming out of your freshman year of college, and then you played a bunch of 24-year-olds who owned the court for the entire evening.
Yeah, there's drive there for sure. It'd be fun to watch. It's going to be a great game. Hopefully it's just a good one.
All right. You have a great day, Mike Jones. Good luck.
Thanks,
and thank you so much for joining us here.
Mm-hmm.
And people will have our recap tomorrow. And then, of course, they'll start diving into some other ventures in terms of helping you and trying to help you bury your bookie. I'm Jeff DeForest for Mike Jones. Thanks for tuning in, everybody.